Ta'ala, these people, their dunya will not benefit them one iota in the hereafter. So the only way you can mirror yourselves after these individuals is if you learn about them. If you do not learn about these, what we call the awliya, the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how then can you mirror them? You must learn about them. And the only way this is possible is if the ulama, they speak about them. Because first it used to always be that those from the subcontinent, in the Urdu Zaban, they would always speak about the awliya. They would mention about their khasa'is, their miracles, etc. But now the younger generation, when they come forth, they have to speak about it as well. Once you arrive at this connection with the awliya, then you will come and arrive at that station of love for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Surah Yunus, Surah 10 of the Quran, verse 63. That certainly upon the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is neither fear nor grief. So once you arrive at this stage of being from the awliya, you will not fear anyone from creation. You will not have any grief in your heart, because your heart will be content that this is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will have no sorrow whatsoever. Any hardship that comes in your way, you will say, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah fi kulliha. In every single state, you will praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. You will not be of those people who will break down in grief. And we are in that time now where unfortunately I have brothers coming to me regularly saying, Imam Sahib, I have mental health issues. Imam Sahib, can you please help me? Just youngsters, 22 years old, 23 years old. The youngest one that came to me, 17 years old. Imam Sahib, I tried to commit suicide 2 times. I actually tried it, but it didn't work. Imam Sahib, please help me. Once you connect these people to the Quran and the Sunnah, once you make that connection with them and the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then when the Satan comes to them and says, you must take your life, that is when these individuals will only see La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and they will not commit suicide. This is what has happened. These brothers that have been coming to me and saying, Imam Sahib, we've been in this situation, help us. Once I speak to them, nothing amazing that I'm telling them, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing spectacular, the very basics. Follow the Quran, pray your salah, send salawat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, read the Quran, do the dhikr, and this will bring peace to your heart. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَعِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. That certainly in the remembrance of Allah is peace and tranquility for the hearts. So this individual who tries to commit suicide twice, he comes to me approximately 6 months later and he says, Imam Sahib, I tried to do it again. The whispers came into my mind, but when I was about to take that step, the only thing I saw in front of me was the green dome of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this did not even allow me to take that step. And you can only arrive at this state once you have this connection with the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahimahullah ta'ala, he was born in a time where there were many ulama that were around in that time. Many ulama. But he is that individual who reached this rank despite these great ulama being around him. He is in the Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. He is Hassani from his father's side and he is Husnain from his mother's side. So he is twice the grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, going back to the bloodline of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from his mother's side and his father's side. His mother's name is Fatima Binti Shaykh Abu Abdullah al-Salmani. al-Jabbar, she was known as, and al-Khayr. When Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahimahullah ta'ala, the night before his birth, his father has a dream. In this dream, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, along with the Sahaba Ikram and the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they all come to visit him. They say, you are going to be gifted such a son who is righteous, is pious. He is loved by Allah and he is loved by his Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is the rank that even before he arrives in this world, he is given the glad tidings of how righteous and noble he will actually be. He was born in 470 or 471 after Hijri. So he's from the earlier generations. His birth month is not actually recorded, but there is ikhtilaf upon it. What is most famous is that he was born in Ramadan. And it's mentioned that he was born in the first day of Ramadan, and he did not touch his mother's milk from the daytime when he was born all the way up until sunset, because he wanted to keep the fast. Right? So miracles are occurring from him immediately. And this is reported from mass transmission. It's not just so-and-so said it and so-and-so said it. The miracles of Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani are reported from mass transmission. It's mentioned about his upbringing that he was brought to Baghdad when he was approximately 16 or 18 years old. That is where he began his real studies. When he was just a youngster, approximately 10 years old, he would go towards the library and he would say that the angels would remove all of the other boys from my path and say the awliya, the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is coming forth, leave space for him. For 15 years, every single night, Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahimahullah ta'ala, he would perform a Quran khatam every single night. He would complete 1,000 nawafil every single night. For 40 years, he, rahimahullah ta'ala, he would perform Fajr Salah with the wudu of his Isha Salah. And after that, he would be in a complete state of wudu always. If his wudu would temporarily break, he would go straight away and refresh his wudu. He was a complete scholar. He was a faqih, he was pious, and he was a muhaddith. Many of us, we just hear him as to be from the awliya, but we do not know his rank in scholarship. And he reached the highest rank in scholarship. Ibn as-Sam'ani, the Hanbali scholar, who dies in 562 after Hijri, he said that he was the Imam of the Hanbalis of his time. He was a pious faqih, he was regular in his dhikr and reflection. Now, from records that we have it, only 2 individuals ever reached the rank where they were able to give fatwa across all 4 schools of thought. The first individual was Imam Mahfuz al-Khaldawani. He died in 513 after Hijri. The second individual who was able to give fatwa across all 4 schools of thought was Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. This is the level of scholarship that he reached. He mastered all 4 schools of thought of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. In his madrasa, he would teach in the madrasa of his Shaykh al-Mukharrim. He would teach there and he would study there, and that is where he passed away, and that is where he is buried today. Ibn Jawzi, he mentioned that Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, that he heard him speak, and he had the quality of zuhud. His madrasa would be crowded when he would speak. People would flock towards him to hear him speak. It's mentioned 3,000 scholars, and I'm talking about real scholars, not just those individuals who passed their exams. Scholars of the highest quality, 3,000 every single year would graduate from his madrasa. When he would give a bayan, when he would give a lecture, and there were 70,000 individuals who are in attendance, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, now remember, this is the time when there's no microphones, etc. Those individuals who would hear him clearly at the first row, they would hear him as clearly in the final row. He was that individual who Imam Wafaddin ibn Qudama rahimahullah ta'ala, who dies in 620 after Hijri. Now who is he? He is the great Hanbali Shaykh. He is the Qadri. He is the Khalifa of Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, and he is the Grand Shaykh of Ibn Taymiyyah. Right? And Ibn Taymiyyah himself, he is from the Khulafa of the Qadri Tariqah. Every single chain of the Qadri Tariqah, if you look at it, it all joins up to Ibn Taymiyyah. He was a Sufi of Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani's Tariqah. That's where the Qadri Tariqah comes from. Does it not? Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, Qadri. We are from Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. So he is from that line as well, and so is his student Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah. He is also a Sufi. So those individuals who say to you there's no such thing as Sufism, they're lying to you. Their own sheikhs who they reference are from the Sufiya. And they may say to you, no, that Sufism was different. That Sufism was different. It was not different. The way we are Sufis and we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is exactly the same way that they would remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The difference is they would be more exerted within the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Jahiliyyah that we see, which is prostrating to graves, dancing around graves, doing tawaf around graves, etc., we disapprove of that as well. It is haram for you to prostrate towards a grave. It is haram for you to do tawaf around a grave. Imam Ahmad Rida Khan, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his Fatawa Ridawiyya, what does he say? If you go to the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, stand 4 feet away. Stand 4 feet away. He says it is permissible for you to kiss the grave if you want to, but it is better for you to not even kiss it. Remain back 4 feet. So when these individuals, they lie upon the internet, on the social media, and they say that you Barelvis do this, Barelvis do that, Sufis do this, Sufis do that, they are lying. Because this term Barelviya is a term which was constructed by them to throw dirt upon the faces of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. They use this as, because Imam Ahmad Rida Khan al-Hazrat rahimahullah ta'ala, he was from Bareilly. He was from Bareilly, so they use this Bareilly. Now if Imam Ahmad Rida Khan rahimahullah ta'ala, he is saying stand 4 feet away, then how can they use the term Bareilly? This is a deception on their part, and it is only done to misguide individuals. Imam Wafaddin ibn Qudama rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, I did not hear anyone narrate more miracles about someone than that what was narrated about Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. And I did not see anyone more honored due to the religion more than Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. Imam Izzuddin bin Abdul Salam rahimahullah ta'ala, who dies in 660 after Hijri, he was a great Shafi'i scholar. He says, none of the sheikhs had their miracles transmitted through mass transmission like Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. Every single one of his miracles is mentioned, it had reached mass transmission. Now, some of his miracles, if you, Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, one of the individuals, Abu Hassan ibn Najah, who dies in 599 after Hijri, he says that I wanted to meet Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. So I went to the Eid prayer early to see if I could meet him. I sat there where he would perform his salah usually, and I waited. There I saw him coming forth, people were surrounding him, and they were kissing his hand. When I saw him, he arrived, he sat down, and he performed 2 rakat of salah. He says, Ibn Najah, I asked myself, what salah is he performing? You do not perform salah, it is a sunnah not to perform salah before the Eid prayer. So what is he performing? Upon this, Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, he exited his salah by doing the salams after completing it. He turned to me and he said, there is a reason why I am performing this salah. And the reason is that I missed one of the prayers that I was making up, i.e. one of the voluntary prayers, because people like this don't miss it for the prayers. So he knew what was in his heart and he answered it before he even asked him the question himself. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, he in his Al-Istiqamah, when he is referring to the ulama, he uses the names. He only mentions the names. But when he is referring to Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jailani, Gawthibah, what does he refer to him as? He refers to him as Qutbul Arifi. Every time he mentions his name. I.e. the pole, the pillar of the time, the pole, the pillar of the knowers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jailani, from his son, Musa ibn Abdul Qadir, he says, I heard from my father that once I went to the countryside for seclusion. After a few days, I became overcome with thirst, and I became very thirsty. Upon this, a cloud came upon me, and some mist started to come forth. Now, because of this mist, I took some refuge with it. I then looked upon the horizon, and a light came forth. When this light came forth, it took a shape and it began to speak to me. And it said, Abdul Qadir, I am your Lord. Indeed, I have made permissible for you the impermissible things. Upon this, Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jailani, he said, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge from the cursed Satan. Get away from here, O cursed one. And then upon that, this light, it turned to smoke. Satan then spoke to Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jailani rahimahullah, and he said, I have deceived 70 of the greatest ulama and knowers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this incident. It is only your knowledge of the ranks and spiritual states that has protected you on this day. This is the rank of Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jailani. If that was us, we'd be like, yeah boy, everything's become permissible for me. I don't have to pray salah, I don't have to do X, Y, Z. You know, this was the same which was given to the companions of Badr. You know, you, the Ashram Bashira, you have been promised paradise. Do as you want from now on. Allah has forgiven you. But did they step back? No. They exerted themselves even more in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jailani rahimahullah ta'ala, he passes away in Baghdad Sharif on the 9th of Rabi' al-Akhir. It was Maghrib time, and he, rahimahullah ta'ala, he passes away in 561 after Hijri. When he is upon his deathbed, he is repeating, noble friend, noble friend. Then he said, alaykumus salam wa alaykumus salam. I am coming to all of you, I am coming to all of you. Who was he talking to? Right? I don't need to mention that. For those of you who know, you know. You know what you guys always say, it doesn't make sense at all. If you know, you know. Right? But if you're on this state, if you know, you actually know. Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jailani mentioned another thing that he said upon his deathbed is, I am a big shaykh, and this is what was promised to you. He was prayed upon by his son Abdul Wahab. Before we finish, just before the adhan, I'm just going to leave you with one piece of advice that Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jailani gave. Abu Muhammad Abdullah ibn Abil Hassan Ali al-Jubai, he said that Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jailani rahimahullah, he was once in a gathering talking about sincerity, ostentation, showing off, and conceitedness, falsifying your realities. And he had a question in his mind. How does one acquire sincerity? At that point, he says, Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jailani, he read what was in my heart and he turned towards me and he said, now pay attention to this advice. He said, when you see that all things come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that He has given you success to perform acts of goodness, and when you rid yourself from duality, only then will you be saved from conceitedness. That what? Know that everything that comes towards you, it only comes because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He is the one who gives you the ability to do good deeds. So if you are an alim who gives speeches and thousands come to listen to you and they praise you, if you are a qari being blessed with a beautiful voice and everybody comes to listen to you, invites you up and down the country, if you are a nadkhwan, you are being called by people up and down the country, you have achieved nothing. You have achieved nothing. The only reason you are in this state is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put you in this position. He has given you the ability for this goodness. If it were not for Him, if it were not for the Rasul salawatu rabbi wa salam alayhi, you would not have this honor. So everything that you do, everything that you see, it is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when He has given you these limbs, He has given you this tongue, He has given you these eyes, don't be going on apps and swiping right and swiping left. Don't be going on Facebook, etc., poking people. Don't be on the streets shotting drugs to people. All of these kind of things, what you are doing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed His blessings upon you by giving you all of these senses, these bounties, this ni'mah of your limbs, and you are using it as a rebellion against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wherever you are. No matter where you are, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you at all times. Know this. So don't think today you are going to represent Islam, come and deliver a speech about Islam. Tomorrow you are going to go and you are going to do something which earns the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to be somebody who earns the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bring yourselves fully into the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Know that He is watching you at all times. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Inna khairu zadi taqwa. That certainly the best of luggage, the baggage is taqwa. God consciousness, fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So know, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always hearing you. He can see you. No matter what you do, He can hear you. There is nowhere you can go without knowing that He is there watching you at all times. He is hearing you at all times. So if you think you are going to be under the bed covers talking to people on your mobile phones, you may be able to hide from your mom and your dad, but you will not be able to hide from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, if you do a bad deed, follow it up with a good deed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will wipe away that bad deed. So wherever we are prone to sin, and I'll finish on this, we are prone to sin. We will sin. It doesn't matter who you are. The ulama, you may think, subhanallah, these people have got it easy. No. The higher you go in ranks, you will be attacked more by the Satan. Especially if you look at the shuyukh who have many students under them, they will be attacked even more. Because you as an individual, you will only misguide yourself. But the ulama, they will misguide themselves and anyone that is underneath them. So we say, وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى سَيِّدِنَا مُحَمَّدٍ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ وَسَلَّمَ تَسْلِيمًا كَثِيرًا. Jazakallah khairan for your time. Inshallah, it is the time for Isha Salah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect and preserve us, keep us away from the waswasa of the Satan, and allow us to join with the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and follow in their footsteps. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.